Robert McNamara, a name etched in the annals of American history, evokes a complex tapestry of brilliance and blunder. A man heralded as a whiz kid for his analytical prowess at Ford Motor Company, McNamara would later become a controversial figure as the U.S. Secretary of Defense during the tumultuous Vietnam War. His tenure, marked by an unwavering belief in the power of quantitative data, ultimately exposed the limitations of numbers in the chaotic theater of war. McNamara's story serves as a cautionary tale, a stark reminder that even the most brilliant minds can fall prey to the allure of simplistic solutions in the face of complex realities. McNamara's journey to the helm of the Department of Defense began with a stellar reputation. His rise through the ranks of Ford, fueled by his mastery of statistical analysis and efficiency models, positioned him as a visionary leader, when President John F. Kennedy tapped him to lead the Pentagon. In 1961, McNamara arrived with an aura of confidence and a conviction that his data-driven approach could bring order to the chaos of war. His initial efforts focused on streamlining operations and introducing modern management techniques, reflecting his faith in rational planning and objective measurement. However, the Vietnam War, a quagmire of political complexities and guerrilla warfare, would prove to be a formidable challenge to McNamara's data-driven worldview. The conflict defied easy categorization, its nuances lost in the cold calculations of kill ratios and bombing tonnage. As the war escalated, McNamara's reliance on quantitative metrics to gauge success, while seemingly logical, would prove to be a critical misstep, leading to strategic blunders and a widening chasm between perception and reality. McNamara's unwavering belief in the power of numbers would come to define his legacy, for better or, as history would judge, for worse. His quantitative approach, while initially lauded as innovative, would become synonymous with the failures of the Vietnam War, a stark reminder that even the most well-intentioned strategies can falter when divorced from the human realities of conflict. Central to McNamara's approach to the Vietnam War was a steadfast belief in the power of quantification. He surrounded himself with a cadre of like-minded analysts, dubbed the whiz kids, who shared his faith in the objectivity of numbers. Together, they sought to measure every facet of the conflict, from enemy body counts to bombing tonnage, believing that these metrics held the key to understanding and ultimately winning the war. This reliance on quantifiable data, while seemingly rational, gave rise to what would later be termed the McNamara fallacy. The McNamara fallacy, at its core, describes the dangerous oversimplification that occurs when complex realities are reduced to easily measurable metrics. It is the seductive allure of numbers promising objectivity and clarity in the face of uncertainty. In the context of the Vietnam War, this fallacy manifested in the belief that success could be measured solely by the number of enemy soldiers killed or the amount of ordnance dropped on the battlefield. This quantitative approach, however, failed to account for the crucial qualitative factors that played an equally significant role in the conflict. The hearts and minds of the Vietnamese people, the complex political landscape, the resilience of the Viet Cong, these intangible elements, impossible to capture in spreadsheets and graphs, were relegated to the periphery of McNamara's calculations. The result was a distorted view of the war, a dangerous illusion of progress built on a foundation of flawed metrics. The McNamara fallacy, while most prominently associated with the Vietnam War, holds relevance far beyond the battlefields of Southeast Asia. It serves as a cautionary tale about the limits of data-driven decision-making, a reminder that even in our increasingly data-obsessed world, numbers alone cannot fully encapsulate the complexities of human experience. The McNamara fallacy found its most potent expression in the metrics used to gauge progress in Vietnam. Body counts, a crude measure of enemy casualties, became a primary indicator of success, fueling a macabre obsession with quantifying death. Military units, under pressure to demonstrate results, found themselves incentivized to inflate enemy casualties, leading to widespread inaccuracies and a distorted picture of the battlefield. Similarly, the tonnage of bombs dropped on Vietnam became a perverse metric of progress. The logic was deceptively simple. More bombs meant more destruction, which in turn was equated with weakening the enemy's resolve. This simplistic equation, however, ignored the realities on the ground. The indiscriminate nature of the bombing campaigns, often targeting civilian areas, alienated the Vietnamese populace and strengthened the resolve of the Viet Cong. The reliance on these flawed metrics had a cascading effect on U.S. strategy in Vietnam. As the body counts mounted and the bomb tonnage soared, a false sense of progress took hold within the higher echelons of power. Dissent was silenced, with those who dared to question the wisdom of the prevailing strategy often sidelined or ignored. The result was a dangerous disconnect between the data being presented and the reality on the ground. The overemphasis on body counts and bombing runs exemplifies the dangers of the McNamara fallacy in action. By prioritizing easily quantifiable metrics over nuanced understanding, U.S. policymakers found themselves trapped in a self-perpetuating cycle of escalation, driven by the illusion of progress rather than the realities of the battlefield. Section 4. Whispers in the Wind, the ignored voices of qualitative intelligence. While McNamara and his team fixated on numbers, a wealth of qualitative intelligence, rich in nuance and understanding, was being gathered by those on the front lines. Soldiers, diplomats, and aid workers, immersed in the complexities of Vietnamese society, witnessed firsthand the limitations of the data-driven approach. Their reports, often contradicting the optimistic picture painted by the numbers, highlighted the resilience of the Viet Cong, the growing disillusionment among the Vietnamese populace, and the futility of trying to bomb a nation into submission. These dissenting voices, however, were often drowned out by the chorus of those who believed in the power of quantification. Field reports, rich in anecdotal evidence and first-hand observations, were dismissed as subjective and unreliable. The McNamara fallacy, in essence, created a system that prioritized data over experience, silencing those who possessed the most intimate knowledge of the conflict. This disregard for qualitative intelligence had profound consequences for the U.S. war effort. By ignoring the human element of the conflict, policymakers failed to grasp the complex motivations driving the Vietnamese people. The result was a series of strategic miscalculations, as U.S. forces found themselves entangled in a war they did not fully comprehend. The story of the Vietnam War is, in many ways, a story of missed opportunities.